Hey, what's up, everyone? Doo-doo-doo. Yeah, okay, my sound's up. All right. What's up, everyone? Thanks for joining. This is kind of a more of a kind of an emergency, but I wanted to put this up because I've noticed this feed coming on my TikTok and um, other social media, and I kind of want to um, address this situation. Um, but before I get into it, we're just gonna have to see what the midterms turn out. But basically, this is very, very disturbing to me as far as our liberties and stuff like that. Um, Me, who have served in the military, I do not like what I'm hearing from this document. So let's just get into it.
Is affiliated with a far less terrorist group from entering the United States. The new policy bars foreign nationals who supported terrorism, participated in economic sabotage, or provided logistical support to far left networks. The big problem is none of these terms are actually defined anywhere in this policy. The administration gets to decide what they mean, case by case because of a specific law they use, which gives the Secretary of State Marco Rubio broad authority that is largely unreviewable. When the government gets to decide who counts as a terrorist without defining the term, history shows us exactly where that goes. The FBI surveilled and actively worked to destroy the NAACP, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and Martin Luther King Jr. under COINTELPRO, labeling them communist threats and national security risks to stifle black liberation movements. The same tactic was used against labor organizers and anti-war activists for decades. And here's what makes this even harder to take seriously as a genuine counterterrorism effort. The same administration issuing this policy has systemically defunded right-wing terrorism investigations, pulled resources from white nationalist threat monitoring, and stood by while the Patriot Front marched through Washington, D.C. on the 4th of July. Right-wing terrorism has historically been the dominant domestic terror threat in this country, but only one political direction is getting a new visa ban. I wonder why.
Absolute insanity. They revoked my TSA.
This new directive that just came out, it is very broad. Basically, it's saying people who are anti-Christian, anti-capitalism, anti um, it's just a whole bunch of anti this and that. It doesn't specify groups. It's basically what they decide as people that fall under left-wing terrorist group are people who are not be able to come in or leave, which basically means anybody. Basically, you can make anybody who's a Democrat, and with the recent wave of the new Democrats that won in New York, the new Democratic Socialists, they've been labeled as communists. And I've heard that lingo go through not just with the Republicans, but also with some of the established Democrats, and that's where I have a problem. And this is rhetoric I don't like, and it does affect people who are traveling because they can pull it. Like, I'm going to talk about this gentleman right now, what they just did to him because his free speech got violated.
I wonder why.
Absolute insanity. They revoked my TSA pre and my global. Won't give me.
Notice the shirt he's wearing.
Then took my global ID. My wife, children got through. They didn't lose theirs, so it can only be one thing. You speak up too much truth. Look at that. First Amendment's already in jeopardy. Absolutely disgusting. And what am I supposed to go back to my way of thinking 2-3 years ago when I did believe Israel was our ally? I was not brainwashed. Now I'm brainwashed. So
Yeah, salute, Ulysses.
I just try to unlearn everything I've learned over the past 2-3 years and just go back to my limited way of thinking that Israel is our ally and they're just defending themselves. Come on, never. I can't go back to that. I've seen too much. This is the
Now you can't even peacefully protest unless you're getting scanned and your stuff, and now you're losing global entry and pre-check. This is ridiculous. Now I mean, yeah, it's coming around again. And this was something that we dealt with the last administration when we had the, parents was against all the things that were going on in school with, some of the sexual education stuff they were pushing with kids and stuff like that. When the parents protested against that, they got put on domestic terrorism list. And now look what they're doing now. Different party, same, different topic, the same BS. This is where I'm getting at.
Story, an ICE protester says that her global entry and TSA pre-check privileges were revoked 3 days after an incident in which an ICE agent scanned her face while she was observing them on the streets. Ars Technica is reporting that 56-year-old Minnesota resident Nicole Cleland was volunteering with a group that tracks potential ICE and Border Patrol vehicles in the neighborhood when she observed a white Dodge Ram being driven by federal agents. She said she followed the car for a short time from a safe distance when two other vehicles being driven by federal agents stopped in front of the Dodge Ram and blocked her path. An agent then exited the vehicle and told her that they had performed facial recognition on her and said that she was impeding their work, warning that if she did it again, she would be arrested.
This is kind of a gray area because I mean, I understand people have some issues with ICE, but I would just stay away from that situation. But this is a gray area.
Away, and then 3 days later, she received an email notification that her global entry and TSA pre-check privileges for airport security had been revoked, with a message telling her that she may have been found in violation of customs and immigration regulations. Federal agents have been known to be using this facial recognition software during these recent raids. Cleland has since filed a declaration about ICE's actions with the district court in Minnesota. We're going to stay on top of this all and more, so spread
documents suggest the Trump administration is about to start classifying people who are against data centers and mass government surveillance as far-left terrorists. The leak was...
Yeah, and here's the scoop on that. These data centers are producing toxic waste. They're taking all the water and they're polluting the air. This is why they got Elon Musk and Doge to go in there. They gutted out all the regulation and fired a whole bunch of federal employees, especially from the Environmental Protection Agency, so they can have these data centers up.
By journalist Ken Klippenstein and centers on an international counterterrorism summit led by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, which is taking place today in Washington. The event brings together representatives from over 60 nations to target what the Trump administration defines as transnational far-left terrorism. The core targets outlined in the leaked summit documents include militant anti-tech networks, or people who are actively opposing unethical technological expansion, pro-Iranian and anti-Semitic networks, or people who oppose the U.S.-Iran war and Israel's actions in Gaza, and
you hear that? So if you oppose a genocide, you're going to be labeled as a far-left terrorist.
Anarchist and Antifa umbrella groups, or anybody who opposes fascism. The document's inclusion of militant anti-tech networks explicitly opens the door to classifying environmentalists, mass surveillance critics, and anti-data center groups under a counterterrorism umbrella. Klippenstein uses the phrase WMD scandal to draw a historical parallel to the pre-2003 Iraq War intelligence. He argues the State Department is inflating the actual operational capacity of decentralized left-wing groups to justify a massive expansion of surveillance and law enforcement powers.
If you're a U.S.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. This is their justification for not giving you, and this is going to be future justification for not giving you passports, because you are going to be considered a left-wing terrorist. That's what they're doing. And I would listen to this next clip with Nomad Capitalist, because he says something very interesting.
And your government just made it harder for you to travel. I happen to think that was actually part of their plan all along. The U.S. has now issued a worldwide travel warning because Americans are at greater danger due to the Iran war, a war that they started and 2/3 of Americans and growing don't want. This is exactly what we talk about. Your country has the power to go out and wage war in your name without your permission. Your elected representatives can do the exact opposite of what you want, and then you're left picking up the pieces. They benefit. I'll tell you how. I will tell you what you should do. And even if you're not an American, there's a lesson here for you too.
And keep something in mind. Iran hasn't threatened the American people, because they understand what's going on. They haven't threatened the American people at all.
And this comes from an article in Newsweek, which says the State Department issues worldwide travel warning as the Iran conflict escalates. Yes, that is putting it mildly. The U.S. is learning something that we've been talking about for some time. Should be like a lesson, should be something that we can all take and say, all right, like, what do I do now? My name's Andrew Henderson. I've been doing that very thing for the last 15 years, and I've built Nomad Capitalist to help people like you who want to legally reduce their taxes overseas, move your assets overseas to protect them, and move yourself and your family with second passports, second residence permits, offshore real estate, all that stuff, because you should not be staying in one country that has total control over your life and your identity. If you want to learn about working with us, go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply. I built the business that I wish existed for me 15 years ago, and we've kept developing it ever since. But let's talk about what Newsweek's saying about how the U.S. government is making your life, your ability to travel, your freedom, your safety abroad, the very thing that you're paying those high taxes for them to do. I'm a U.S. citizen. They're going to protect me no matter where I go. They're actively causing your lack of safety if you choose to leave their country. Plus, again, I think that they happened to have a bit of a plan in mind here. I'll share that with you in a moment. First, the article, the U.S. State Department on Saturday issued a worldwide travel alert for Americans abroad. This is one of those every country on earth alerts that you see every once in a while, citing heightened tensions in the Middle East and warning that groups supportive of Iran could target U.S. citizens and interests overseas. The global
Basically, Iran's only targeting places in the Middle East, U.S. bases and stuff. They're not targeting civilians. If you start seeing things that's getting targeted, I'm gonna tell you it's a false flag, and it's gonna be done by Israel.
wide caution alert comes as active fighting between the U.S. and Iran intensifies. Earlier, the U.S. military acknowledged that a missile and drone strike in Jordan killed 2 American service members. That has, of course, been developing. Very unfortunate. Any loss of life is, of course, unfortunate. But what they're saying here is your government thought they were just going to go in to Iran. It was going to be it was going to be a cakewalk, that they could cut off their allies who didn't agree. Whether I like all those countries or not, those allies were right in the Iraq War 20-some years ago, and they're proving to be right again now. Like, they chose to stay out of this. It's the U.S.'s and Israel's fight, and it's not going well. And so the U.S. is learning what it's like, maybe for the first time, to really be caught up in, hey, we started a war and there's going to be consequences. Not the sanctions that you'd get if you lived in Iran or Russia or Belarus, but you're learning now that your own government's saying, when you travel overseas, like, hey, people are going to be looking to screw with you or to harm you, and we can't protect you. Maybe they could, but we don't care enough to, because what I believe is somewhere in the back of their minds is, you know what? And this is where I think the right wing is just as bad as the left. Let's keep all of our productive people in the homeland where they're paying.
Yeah, there you go. Because this is what's happening right now. Because of the toxicity of the politics in the United States, guess who's leaving? All the productive people with skill sets, and they're going to other countries and they're getting jobs over there. And guess what? There's other countries are benefiting from the talent.
And they're not qualifying for the foreign earned income exclusion, and they're not moving some of their bank deposits overseas because they went to Portugal and found that maybe the life is nicer there, or they went to Georgia, or they went to Malaysia, or they went to Panama. We don't want people seeing those places. We don't want people moving their money. We don't want people taking their talents to other places. Was that their goal all along? In some way, I would say probably it was.
The rules for
Yeah. So do you think they're going to start restricting us from going overseas? You never know. You never know with this administration.
Long-term residency and citizenship in Europe are constantly changing. If you're planning to move to Europe, or if you're already in motion, a lot of what you may have read online could now be wrong. I'm Kristen. I've spent the last 20 years traveling the world, helping thousands of people move abroad, and I'm currently in Europe myself pursuing residency followed by citizenship. So these are topics that I don't just talk about, but my clients and I actually live every day.
Yeah, if you're not subscribed to Kristen, please do so. Traveling with Kristen. She gives out wonderful information about moving abroad. And this particular video, there's some, she's going to talk about a couple of countries in Europe. I was going to do a follow-up with a PowerPoint, but I have to change up the PowerPoint because of certain reasons. And I'll explain at the end of the video.
Let me walk you through what's changed in the past year, who it affects, and what's still possible right now before these windows close. Let's start with Portugal, because for years it has been among the most popular places for my clients to move to, but also worldwide. Portugal often ranks among the best places to retire in the world, as well as for remote workers and also families, people who are looking for a better quality of life, a lower cost of living, a mild climate year-round, and a population that was actually welcoming to them.
Plus, you got so many people want to go to Portugal. Can it sustain the infrastructure? Plus, the gentrification is starting to grow. That's why I like Portugal. It sounds great, but
If you followed Portugal a lot online and on YouTube, you know that the sales pitch for Portugal was always the same. It was a fast track to getting European citizenship, 5 years to be exact. But this year, a new law came into effect that essentially doubled or even tripled that citizenship timeline. So what actually happened was that qualifying residency period to obtain Portuguese citizenship jumped from 5 to 10 years for most people, including Americans. But if you're from a country like Brazil, which is Portuguese speaking, it went from 5 to 7 years. Now the part that hasn't gotten a lot of attention, but that is probably the most painful aspect of this, is that your residency clock doesn't start when you enter the country. It starts when your residency becomes official and you receive your card. So not from the date that you apply, but from the date that card is issued. And if you know anything about Portuguese bureaucracy, you know that can take a long time. So what some experts on the ground have been saying is that it might not be 10 years until you get citizenship. It could be closer to 12, 13. I've even seen estimates of 15 years waiting on the.
yeah, because the original card could take you 2 to 3 years to get the original card before you can apply for citizenship. And when you apply for citizenship, that's what she's talking about. That's where the 12 and 15 can happen.
Portuguese bureaucracy, and that wouldn't surprise me. Now, one important nuance that is really making a lot of people angry is that no one's grandfathered into this system. If you've already applied for your Portuguese citizenship, you can stay on that path. But if you are at 4 years and 10 months or 11 months, you're out of luck and you have to wait another 5 years to be able to apply. So I don't think this really affects people that were planning to live in Portugal permanently anyway, because you can still stay there with your permanent residency. But it does affect people that move there specifically for that, only to want to move to another country once they had their passport in hand. But the good news is that Portugal as a place to live hasn't changed. It still offers the D7 and D8 visas, which are among the most popular visas for Americans moving to Portugal. It's still a friendly country, still has a low cost of living despite those housing prices, still has good food, and is still generally a great place to live. The permanent residency category at 5 years hasn't changed, and after 5 years you still have the right to live and work in Portugal, and you can travel through the Schengen area on your existing passport. So everything that made Portugal a viable option is still there, except that ability to apply for your passport after 5 years. And for most of the people I work with, honestly, this is fine because a lot of my clients are looking to move to Europe for quality of life reasons and to actually live there. They're not so interested or motivated in getting a passport. I mean, yes, that is a bonus. It's a
No, go over there, get the passport. Whatever country you going to, get in this process, get a second passport. That's why I'm doing this. Uh, if you're not in any process, like right now, I'm in the process of getting for Mexico. Eventually, I'm gonna move on to from temp residency to permanent, and then eventually try to get citizenship so I can get that second passport. That's what you want to do. Get the second passport so you have 2 or 3 passports that you can go and use, because I don't know what's going to happen with this administration. I know the administration is going to go away eventually, but the way that we just switched from a Democratic administration to this Republican, and both of them has been bad. So that's why I'm saying cover your ass.
benefit that they can get after 5 to 10 years, depending on where they're living. But for a lot of people, that's a secondary reason and not their primary motivation for wanting to live in Europe. I would say it ranks pretty low, maybe in the top 5 to 10 reasons that they want to live there. So that would be my question for you. Is your main reason of moving to Portugal to get citizenship? Then maybe something to think about. But if it's just to have a good life and to be able to live there long term, potentially forever, then it's still a good option, with or without the passport.
And another reason for Europe, for you guys, you don't have to worry about working remote or trying to get a US remote job. You can work in Europe if you know the language, take your skill sets, whatever you have, go over there, work there, make money. You can get a citizenship, whatever, and continue doing it. Same thing with certain countries in Latin America. You can do the same thing, but you got to know which countries to go to. That's why I got to adjust this PowerPoint, because you need to go to those specific countries to do that. Certain countries where these passport bros are going to, they're actually going to the wrong countries. There's only certain countries that allow foreigners to work there. And even when you become a citizen, it gets complicated. But you want to go someplace where you can get a job and not rely on remote work, because remote work is phasing out in certain areas, and you want to be able to at least maximize your dollar. Just get something really good. And there's some great jobs availability in European countries.
Italy is a country that I think has hit people the hardest emotionally, because for generations, an Italian passport through ancestry felt like something that was just there. It was accessible. If you had a great grandparent from Italy, you could trace that line and easily get your passport. And sure, it was slow and paperwork heavy, but it was a path that millions of people were counting on. But on March 12th, 2026, Italy's Constitutional Court upheld Law 74 of 20.
Okay, you couldn't hear me? Can you hear me now, Pooh Man? Can you hear me now? Oh, you again. Oh, man, Pooh. Oh, Jesus. Wait, hold on. I made me lose my spot.
10
Pooh.
years for most people, including a mild climate card is issued. You can existing passport. So everything that made citizenship, then maybe Italy's Constitutional Court upheld Law 74 of 2025. What that ruling did was essentially cut the path to citizenship by ancestry down to 2 generations instead of 3. So you had to have a parent or a grandparent instead of a great-grandparent to be eligible for your Italian citizenship. And that affected millions of people around the world, and a lot of Americans who were already preparing for that process, spending a lot of time gathering their documents, and I was one of those people. I had been lightly researching it over the years. I wasn't 100% sure if I could qualify because technically my grandmother was born in the United States and her parents gave up their citizenship to become US citizens, so it can get pretty complex. But in hindsight, I think that I probably could have qualified before the law changed. So if you're watching this and realizing that you are in the same boat, you're not alone. And I know a lot of people that work with Americans, especially who are trying to get their Italian citizenship, have been hit with a lot of questions, a lot of emails from people who thought that this doorway was open for them in the future when they had more time, when they retired, and now that door is closed.
Also, guys, I know she's talking about from, excuse me, from this the sense that you can get your citizenship in Italy. You can also get it if you work there or if you live there. If you're on a particular visa and stuff like that, you can also qualify to become a citizen of Italy as well. And that's, like I said, one of the stuff I'm going to research and do in a future video.
Another ramification of this was lawsuits. So a lot of people sued the Italian government to be able to continue on that process or qualify for the citizenship. From what I've heard, a lot of those lawsuits have been thrown out, but there are some that are still being upheld in the courts. So if you or someone you know is in a lawsuit with Italy, then let us know your experience in the comments. But the good news for Italy is that similarly to Portugal, there are still paths to live there long term. They have a freelancer visa, they have a visa for retirees called the elective residence visa, they have a digital nomad visa, they have study permits, work permits. There's different routes to be able to live in Italy temporarily or long term and get on a path to permanent residency, especially with that ERV. It was actually designed for people to retire there permanently. So you don't need Italian citizenship to be able to enjoy the Italian lifestyle with the slower pace of life, the walkability, the better quality of life, and just finding a place that feels like home. You don't need an Italian passport to do any of that. And if you want to live there long term and naturalize as a citizen after 10 years, you still have the option to do that as well. I know that the ability to buy a passport or get a passport through descent is very appealing because it's a lot faster than doing it the old-fashioned way. But if you're really committed to a country and its culture and learning the language and being a part of that community and society, then living there is a viable path.
And also keep in mind, when you become a citizen in one of the EU countries, because not all of Europe is an EU country, once you become a citizen, you can basically live wherever in the EU countries. And I think there's something like, I think it's 31 EU countries that you can just basically live in. So that's a big flexibility. That's an advantage for you guys that you can just go whatever.
Malta is the third one, and this is less about who it affects directly and more about what it means for the entire European landscape. So last year, the European Court of Justice ruled that Malta's citizenship by investment program was unlawful, and it's since been shut down. Malta was the last country in Europe where you could legitimately buy a passport. And it was also one of the more affordable programs in the world. But what
just to give you some background on that, there were certain countries, hostile countries like China, Russia, that you will go to these countries that had golden visas, you can just buy a passport, literally. I mean, just invest, throw some money in an investment, and voila, you got yourself a passport. And that was a threat because you didn't know, because these countries that you bought a passport from, you can use them to go into the United States or other EU countries and stuff like that and spy. That was the issue. So they had to get rid of that.
Court called it was a transaction, and the official position from the European Court is that European passports are not for sale. Cyprus shut down their program in the past, Portugal ended the real estate route on its golden visa, and Spain shut down its golden visa option entirely in 2025, and now Malta. So that's it. That's the end of being able to buy a European passport. If Malta was your route via that passport, it's gone now. But Malta does have the Malta retirement program, and that is the one that a lot of people are looking at if they want to retire in Europe. So if you like the idea of living in Malta, living in an island in the Mediterranean, then that could still be an option for you. But on
And I believe that's the issue that was going on in the Caribbean when President Trump had put a visa ban on the Caribbean countries and certain African countries. That was one of the reasons why. It was just because, again, threat actors from other nations can go over there and just basically do the same thing. But there was other issues as well. And this is an example of why visa rules are changing. That's why I'm saying, you guys, jump on this stuff with getting temporary resident visas and all this other stuff. Jump on it now because it's constantly changing. I can't even keep up with it. And plus, they're also starting to get expensive too.
there are still other options across Europe, countries like Italy, Switzerland, and Luxembourg, where an investment can lead to residency, plus several startup or entrepreneur visa routes that function similarly if you're genuinely running a business there. But the days of writing a check and getting a passport in a year or two and never actually living there are done. So if you do want a passport by investment, there are still options that exist in the Caribbean, but those
Caribbean is very expensive, but the countries I'm going to give you guys, they're the cheapest. They're going to be your cheapest one, but it's going to take years before you actually get it. But the key thing is to get you on a path to getting it. That's the key thing I want you guys to get. Put you on a path of getting it on the cheapest route. This is the rich man route. Guys can't really afford it, but there's another route to it.
aren't European passports. The point is that buying a European passport now is off the table, but you can still acquire citizenship through naturalization and living in these countries long term, in most cases. Now, Germany is also worth mentioning, but unlike the other countries we've talked about so far, in this case, the changes go in both directions, right? So pros and cons. In June of 2024, Germany made a significant change. It started allowing dual citizenship for everyone, because before that, to become German, you had to give up your original passport, but that's no longer true, and anyone naturalizing in Germany can now hold both. At the same time, Germany reduced the standard residency requirement for naturalization from 8 years to 5. So that 5-year clock is now the baseline. Alongside those changes, the previous government had also introduced a 3-year fast track. So if you integrated quickly and reached a higher language level and did everything early, you could apply for.
Just to jump on this language level thing, that's pretty much for citizenship, which you have to get that first before you can get a second passport. C level, that's basically fluency. That's advanced level. You're going to see things like B level, level. A level is like beginning. B is intermediate. C is going to be advanced. So this is off one of their foreign language charts they most commonly use and stuff. But and that's basically listening and I believe speaking. I don't think it's writing, but I have to double check that.
Citizenship after just 3 years, and this was the fastest route in any major European country. However, that fast track was repealed in October 25 and is now gone. So that 3-year route that still applies is only for spouses of German citizens, which has always been there and was never affected. So where Germany sits right now, you have 5 years of legal residency, dual citizenship is allowed, B1 level German is required, and then all the standard fees and tests are still in place. So it's not the fastest path in Europe anymore, but it's one of the cleaner ones if you're actually planning to live there long term. So Germany is an interesting one because on one hand, they're tightening things up, but then opening in another area. So if that's a country of your choice, then the path is pretty clear.
One thing about with Germany and their requirements, because I took a look at it, and I'll talk about that at the end of the video. And this is something I do not like.
Now let's take a break from the country list right now because I want to leave you with something other than these laws and rules. When someone comes to me wanting to move to Europe, we don't start the conversation with which visa can you get and which golden passport or residency option. We start with why you want to move to Europe and what your vision of your life looks like. Why do you want to go? What drew you to this idea? And what do you want the next 10 years of your life to look like? What about the next 20? Because there are really a couple different types of people that I talk to. In one camp, which is the minority, are the people that just want to have second passports for.
Anything on Finland? Finland is hot right now on the job market. They need people. Anything from blue collar to white collar, last I checked. And they'll help foreigners get their blue card, which is the card you use for the work there, and that can help you with getting citizenship. So, and that's what I was trying to tell in other podcasts I was talking about. There's European countries that's looking for workers because their population is aging out and they need foreign workers. There's plenty of jobs out there, and I see the advertisement for it. So if you go to some of these countries like Finland, there's an opportunity you can get yourself a good paying job out there and make money, instead of relying on, okay, I gotta get a US remote job and work remotely and all this other crap. Go over there and make their money and stuff like that and live, and you're doing fine. Like if you want to get a job as, say you're in the medical field, you can get a job as a doctor or whatever. Or if you're in cybersecurity, go over there and do cloud security or whatever and stuff like that and make their money. You'll do fine. All right. That's the beauty of it.
Plan A, B, and C, and D in case there is, some World War III, which is a genuine concern. But the majority of people are the ones that just want to live a better lifestyle, one that's more walkable in a safe area with access to fresh, healthy food, good quality health care, things like that. So for that person, the passport isn't the goal, the lifestyle is. The passport is just one of those tools that might come eventually. And what I find is that most of the time, people just want to live somewhere where they feel settled. And you can do that as a permanent resident. You don't have to wait to get a passport before you start living the life you actually wanted. So when the news says Italy closed this door or Portugal doubled the clock, read those headlines through this lens. Did the door to a passport close, or did the door to the life close? Because in most cases, the door to that lifestyle is still wide open. It's just the shortcut to the passport that's getting smaller. So now that you know what's changed and what's possible, go ahead and watch this video next, where I'll share with you 10 steps to leaving the United States to live abroad.
Okay. Basically, this is the thing, guys. Um, I had to redo this PowerPoint that I was going to share with you because there's some countries I have to eliminate. One of them being Germany. And let me explain why. Germany, one of their requirements had to do with, and this is what I don't like, it specifically saying you have to be nice. Not saying that we're not nice to certain people, but we have to be nice to a particular ethno-religious group, if you know what I mean. That to me is a bias because we're nice to everybody, you know. Why is that specifically written in their requirements for a citizenship? Which is why I have a problem with that. It's specifically for that particular group. I'm having issues with that. And I guess you guys know who I'm talking about. Argentina, I'm not a fan of that country. That's just me. Thailand, it's a complicated one that I have to do a separate video for, along with Canada and Philippines. I might just jumble all three of them together and do a video just for those three. Exactly. Exactly. Not just that, it's because of what going on in a certain country that they're doing right now that's causing all this nightmare. Not particularly of that particular group, but a particular ideology that certain people are following, which I can't mention. But you get the drift. That's the problem I'm having. Don't put a Pacific group and specialize them as your requirement to get citizenship. That doesn't make any damn sense. It just doesn't. Yeah, and I'm sorry. I can't rock with that, bro. Especially what's going on right now. I can't rock with that. That's just, for me, I can't. Especially what's going on right now. At that stage, it's just like, no, I'm sorry. Like I was saying, I got to do a special one and I might throw in Japan too, because they have certain requirements. It's a little complicated, and I got to try to explain it. Um, but it's doable. Because I know guys go to Thailand and stuff. There's a way you can become a citizen, but it's a little bit complicated. So I might have to. Yeah, I know, but I'm not gonna. Yeah, it's in place, but I'm not gonna rock with that. That's gonna be off my plate. I'm not gonna deal with that. But I want to give you guys places where y'all can go and do stuff. Go to countries where it's that is you can go get your citizenship while dealing with these specialized requirements. Also, like I said, I think I'm gonna jumble Canada, Japan, um, Thailand, Philippines, all into one video because it's one video because it's kind of complicated, but it's doable. And I would suggest you guys have some type of higher education to do, so you can understand that. Yeah, especially Spain, especially after I did that Spain video, because the thing is with Spain, I love when y'all guys are talking about Alicante, y'all got me kind of hooked on that one. I'm seriously want to take a trip out there and check it out. I really want to check out Alicante. Um, that sounds like a dream over there. Um, and again, that's when you go over there, you can work and live and work in those countries can when you have your skill sets and you can speak the language fluently. You can go and work and live in there and still continue. You know, you don't have to say, I got to get me Um, I don't have to get me a freaking remote job. Yeah, that's another one. That's a good city. Valencia is another one. Yeah, those are places, you guys got to go check out and stuff like that. And but what I'm saying is, right now, time ain't. Excuse me. Time is not on your side, guys. You got to choose a country, check it out, and see if it's for you. The country has to fit you. Keep that in mind. It has to fit you. So go check out a country, see if it works for you, um, and start thinking about starting the process. At least temporary residency. Um, you can always get multiple residencies in multiple countries, because that's what I'm doing. I got the Philippines in the back of my mind. I got Paraguay. I got Thailand. I have a couple other places on my mind to get, multiple residencies at. That way I can choose which one I want to shoot for. So think about that. But I would highly recommend you guys work on it fast, because, like I said, they're constantly changing the visa rules and the residency rules and stuff like that. I'm expecting more changes. I know that the fees are going to go up next year for Mexico. I don't know by how much, because this year they doubled it, which was like a shocker to me, because usually it just goes up a certain percentage. They just straight up doubled, and it caught me off guard. And it cost me a lot of money to renew my card for 3 years, and I gotta wait right now 2.5 years before I can transfer my card from temporary to permanent. So I highly recommend starting this process now. If you haven't seen the Mexico video, please do so. If you want to do Mexico, it's if you I'm telling you, because that's one of the easiest one to do. Paraguay, they're enforcing their residency stuff, because a lot of people weren't spending time there. They're getting real picky about who's going to be there. So they're asking for like jobs and all this other stuff. So I got to look at those rules a little bit more. So I highly recommend, if you're going to do Paraguay, um, check that out first and see if Paraguay is going to be for you, because Paraguay is kind of like a little sleeper. But a lot of people is putting in for Paraguay. They're only taking 200 a day, 200 applications a day. So you really need to take a look at that. Let me see who else. Armenia, you can do that online if you want to do Armenia. Um, get your stuff back in 90 days. Um, but I would use a lawyer for that one. But yeah, I would do Armenia. I would also look at that's if you want to go way out there. Um, but I would also look at who else is a good one to get? Malaysia is a nice one to get. If you're retiree, um, Panama, Costa Rica is pretty good. Um, Not too sure. I got to do more research on Costa Rica, but I heard it's pretty good. Panama, I'm still on the fence with. Um, I heard they're starting to do some drugging and robbings over there. Panama. Yeah, they're starting to scope over there too. Um, who else is good? I wouldn't do Colombia. Nothing, no disrespect to Colombia. I just wouldn't do it with all the crap that's been going on over there. Dude ruined it, so it is what it is. Brazil, no. That's because once you become a citizen over there, you're taxed globally for everything you got. If you got stuff back in the United States, you get taxed on it. So their tax system is complicated. Um, so I wouldn't do Brazil. Um, Ecuador is a possibility. Um, just got to be careful where you go in Ecuador. Um, Uruguay, yeah, a little on the fence on that one. Um, but anyway, like I said, guys, start looking. If you got any ideas for a show you want me to do, I'll do a show on which is the best countries to go to based on my opinion. You know what? I think I'll do that one. I think I'll do a show on the best ones to go. Um, so that way, you guys, if you think that's a good idea, I'll do a show like that. Which one's the best one to get residency and stuff like that? Because this whole thing, what they did with this whole freaking this whole ban and stuff like that, that is just low down dirty. That's just no. That is just I can't rock with that. What the State Department's doing, I can't. That's just illegal. And then you don't know what the next thing they're gonna do. And I'm not even gonna really get into it. But anyway, but let me see. Hold up a second. Where are you at? Oh, here you go. Throw down a link real quick, just in case anybody want to come up. But throw a link up. But yeah, yeah, a lot of this stuff is getting expensive. Yeah, this is based on my opinion, which is going to be advantageous because it's going to take a while, Pooh, to if you guys want to come up, you can come up. Yeah, Pooh, it because there's a lot of guys, especially in this black travel thing, they just want to go to the ones you constantly see like DR and Colombia and Brazil and Thailand, and they pretty much think that yeah, we'll go here, everything's cool, but they don't realize there's pitfalls to a lot of places, and you got to figure out what's going to benefit you. And there's a lot of dudes right now that are leaving these places because they get going overseas to live. There's loneliness that goes along with it. See, everybody goes over there because, oh, the women and this and that. No. If you are not fluent in the language and you don't get to know people and stuff like that, if you don't go there with a specific purpose, you will get lonely. Because sitting in the house all day trying to make money on the computer, you're locked in your house all freaking day. Except for going out to the beach or whatever, and you don't know the language, and you're just relying on your phone and stuff, you're not going to make friends like that. You're not interacting with people. That's the difference. That's why I say go and, go out to these countries where you can actually get a job because you're actually interacting with people. That's how we meet a lot of our friends, is to sometimes do work. Now, you don't necessarily, it's not even necessarily like the tourist zones or anything like that, Pooh. It's basically like for example, like say, people want to go to Rio, okay, which to me is a bad place to meet and get in the dating scene in Rio. But Rio, first of all, Brazil got racial issues and stuff like that. Now, I was just looking at one of the YouTubers. He was saying that when he lived in Rio, cops will constantly stop him. That's the stuff you're trying to get away from America and stuff. And now it's really worse down there when you go into the places like that. So why are you going down there? It's like you didn't do your research. Because there's still that element of racism and stuff. The only way he gets off the hook is saying, yo, I'm an American. And, they just kind of back off and stuff. That's the issue. But do you want to go live in a country that's like that? No. That's why when you go to Europe and stuff like that, it's kind of a different vibe. You go, if you got a certain job skill, like say, like I said, you're a software engineer, you're going to work, you're interacting with people, you can speak the language, you talk to them, and you start building friendships that, you go, you meet people, you talk to them, and then after work, you do your after work thing with them. They start inviting you to stuff, you start doing things. But these guys, all they're doing is they got to stay in the house and trying to make money because they're working online. They don't get to meet people, and they get burnt out, and they get lonely because why? They don't interact with enough people unless they're out partying. And that's even not a great place to interact with people meaningfully. So that's the thing. And that's why a lot of these people end up either going to another country or coming back to the United States. And I know that because when I lived in Israel, that was pretty much, I spent a lot of my time studying. And when I had time, I was on my own, just like I got to get out of the dorm room. So I went out, go. Like I said, seen some people that I knew. I go downstairs and chit chat with them, hung out with them for a little bit. Then I, pop in, or I see one of my friends. Hey, you want to go hang out? Go to this place? Yeah, we'll go meet up. And we'll take a trip and go to one of the sites and stuff and hang out there. Or we'll go down to Jerusalem or something like that. Make a day trip out of it. That was pretty much our entertainment and stuff. Or I'd go down to the beach and chill and stuff like that. That was it. But you guys, when you move overseas, that's why I say learn the language. Learning the language, you'll start opening up and start meeting friends and stuff. A lot of these dudes that you see on YouTube, they don't know the language. They don't know the language fluently to go interact and have a decent conversation with people. They're probably like an A1, A2 at most. They're not fluent. So guess what? They don't meet people. They're always lonely. And what happens? They freaking gotta get up and move. And this is what I'm telling you guys. So that's why I push Europe, because of the fact you can get a job. Whereas some of these other places that they go in, you can't get a job because they don't give jobs to foreigners. So, well, in Mexico, you have a bigger expat community down there, so you can integrate with that stuff in certain areas in Mexico. And you can chill with the expats over there. But anyway, we're coming up on an hour, and I got to get ready for this class I got to take for my business. So, I think I'll start working on that for my opinion on the best countries to move to get visas and stuff, resident visas from. I'm gonna give you my opinion. I'll do that video instead, so that way you guys can kind of get an idea. I'll do it for not just South America. I'll do it for all countries, Europe, Southeast Asia, all that stuff. I'll put together my personal list. What I think is beneficial. And I'll put down the requirements and everything and stuff like that for you guys, so you guys can take a look at. This is just basically going to be my opinion, so that way you guys can take a look at. But anyway, guys, I wanted to get that out so that way you guys can understand what's going on and kind of encourage you further to go get your start getting your resident visa started, because this is crazy. This is like crazy work they're doing over here, trying to suppress people's freedom of speech and suppressing your travels and stuff. So yeah, I'll start working on that once I finish this class. I'll get working on that, guys, for you guys. All right, guys. You guys have enjoy your evening. I'll catch up with you guys later. Oh, and for you guys that are veterans, one more thing. The TSA just started a new lane for you guys that are military and veterans, which means you skip the line. It's not a pre-check. You'll still get checked when you get up the head of the line, but there's a special lane for you guys. Right now, there's 30 airports that are participating in it. So if you're a veteran, that new lane is just started. I just caught wind of it. So you got to have your VA health card or whatever to use that lane. So this is a benefit for you veterans out there. So again, this is not a pre-check thing. You still have to get checked, but there's a special lane for you guys at the airport that you can use now that will bypass the regular line. So anyway, I'll catch up with you guys later. You guys have a wonderful evening.